Hare Krishna, good morning, dear devotees from Bhubaneswar Dham. We're temporarily here in Bhubaneswar today. And these are our series of adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam that we're calling Meeting in Kuruksetra. My name is Madhavananda Das. And today we're going to be on our 93rd session of Meeting in Kuruksetra. So I want to welcome anybody to take part. We'd like these to be as interactive as we can. So if anybody has any reflections or comments at the end, questions, please do that. Please share this with us. So we'll begin with a little Mangalacharna prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naram shaivandarotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat vedi ramayanesh chaiva purane bharate tata Adavante cha madhye cha hari sarvatra giyate Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yet kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum dinatadanam Paramananda madhavam Paramananda he madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakari Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikoribe Chakadola Se chakadolanka paraye manamo rahu nirantare manamo nirantare rahu ha Krishna boli jiva jao ha Krishna boli jao jiva Mote udada radha dava Mote udada radha dava Mote udada radha dava Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Artaika Sadhanam Krishnam Artan Vrajajanam Shatan Tam Chatasvasakam Bhaktam Artya Vande Durasaya Artaika Sadhanam Krishnam. In great sorrow I take shelter of Krishna. This is a pranam mantra Jiva Goswami writes in his commentary on the Bhagavatam to Uddhava. Artaika sadhanam Krishnam. With a sorrowful heart I take shelter of Krishna, who's artan brajajanam chatan. He's the only shelter for persons who are suffering. He's the only shelter for the devotees of Braj. Tam tatasvasakam bhaktam artya vande darasaya. I offer my pranams to Uddhava, who alleviated their sufferings. Gora graganya gana gota goloruharam Goranga guritama gopyada kolpa briksham Gopala gada ratidam yati singha gora govinda deshika varam satatam namami. So I'd like to look back a little bit, dear devotees. We're speaking from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, which is known as the Brahmara-gita, which, as we've often commented, is considered by many Vaishnavas to be the most important chapter in the entire Bhagavatam, because it's this chapter which sets the stage for Gauranga Mahaprabhu, sets the stage for the feelings and the emotions that he's experiencing. And therefore, Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Antilila chapter 16, he explains that in the Gambhira, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in the mood of Srimati Radharani when she was meeting Uddhava at near to Nandagaon, which is the Brahmara-gita. So we've heard how Krishna gave a message to the gopis, and he sent that with Uddhava, and how Krishna spoke that message to the gopis, and how the gopis initially didn't understand it. But Krishna had told Uddhava, Gachotava Brajam Somya, my dear Somya, my dear gentle Uddhava, Pitro no Pritim Avaha, you please go and give this message to my parents for their satisfaction. And Gopinam Madviyogadyam, you give this to the gopis who are Viyogadyam, who are completely absorbed in feelings of separation from me. Adyam, they're feeling so much suffering and pain in the mind. And he says, Mat Sandaishar Vimochaya. Vimochaya comes from the same word as Vimukta, or liberation. You relieve them. And doing so, how to do that, Mat Sandeshaya. Sandeshaya means a Sandesh, it means the message. The Sandeshaya, grammatically, is plural. So Krishna's telling Uddhava, you speak it, then you speak it again, and then you speak it again. And each time that Uddhava spoke the message, the same words, the gopis would understand it in a deeper way. And this, as we've commented in previous sessions, is very important for us too. We should hear the message of the Bhagavatam. We should hear it again, we should hear it again and again. We should hear it over and over and over. And each time we'll find more and more subtle nuances in the Bhagavatam. Because Krishna Tulya Bhagavata, Vibhu Sarvashray, Prati Shlokin, Prati Aksha Nanatakoi. Each and every verse of the Bhagavatam has unlimited meanings. Indeed, each and every syllable has unlimited meanings. And therefore, Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarvashray, that just as Krishna is Vibhu, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so also is Srimad Bhagavatam, so also is the message of Krishna. So now in this section, we've heard how Uddhava delivered that message to the gopis, and now the gopis are giving their response back to Uddhava. And this response is Divyonmada. It's a kind of Dibya, divine, Unmada, madness, on the behalf of the gopis. And we're hearing something about the inner heart of the gopis. So we're going over again the last few weeks, text number 44 and 45. The gopis described in text 45, Apyesyatiha dasahas tapta swakritaya sucha sanjivayan no gatraya yatendravanam abudai. They address Krishna as a descendant of Dasara. And we explained that previously, how Dasara was a king in the Yadu family. He's no longer, in one sense, they're saying Krishna's no longer a Brijbasi, now he's joined with the Yadus in Braj. And Krishna is sometimes called Dasara. Dasara in the Shiva Purana is a description, a story about him, that Dasara, he had some pop in him, but that pop went away and came out of his body in the shape of crows. So in a similar way, the gopis are praying that Krishna may touch us, and the sin or the pop, the suffering, they're thinking the suffering that we're going through, will that be taken away from us. And in the same way, Sanjivayan, the Gatra, by touching us in this way, Yatendro Vanam Abudai, just like Indra, Yatendro Indra, Vanam Abudai, he gives life to the forest. He puts out the forest fire with his water-bearing clouds. So the gopis are praying like this, will Krishna do this for us? The gopis are feeling great humility. And Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Vaishnava Toshan, he says that the gopis are saying that if he remembers us, he'll return, but we don't think that he's going to remember us. And just previously, two verses prior to this, the gopis were saying that we do remember that you never forgot us, and examples in the Ras Leela. But now they're thinking something completely different, because this is their unmadana, and their madness. They're saying one thing, and then a moment later they say something else, and they forget what they'd said previously. So the gopis go on, text 45. Kasmat Krishna ihayati prapta rajyo hatahitaha narendra kanya udvaya trita saiva suridbritaha. Then the gopis, they say, but why should Krishna come here? Ayati, why would he come here? Prapta rajyo hatahitaha. Now he's gotten a big kingdom. He's killed all of his enemies. And now he's Narendra Kanya. He's Udvaya. He's married so many different daughters of kings. And Prita Saiva Surid Britaha. He's surrounded by his well-wishers. So the gopis are their unmadana, or their intense feelings of separation, is bringing up a very deep feeling of humility. And the gopis, as we discussed in the previous verse, the gopis were thinking that this is not good, that Krishna is not getting enough pleasure there. But then the next moment, the gopis are saying that actually Krishna will be happy there. He's going to stay, he's going to marry those princesses. They're much more qualified than ourselves. So this is a symptom of the deep humility of the gopis, a natural humility, which again is found in text 46. Kim ashma birvanoko bir anya birva mahatmanaha Shri patir aptakamasya kriyetarta kritatmanaha. They said that Krishna, he's Mahatma. He's a great soul. And he's the Lord of Lakshmi Devi. He's Shri Pate. Aptakamasya. His desires are completely self-satisfied. He gets whatever he wants. So then what will he want with us? Kim asma virvana opgabi. Why would he want anything to do with us? We're just residents in the forest. We're not highly sophisticated city ladies. We're just very simple persons who live in the forest. So again, this is an example of the gopis' humility, and we see a connection between this discussion in the Brahmara-gita and in the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto. It's 47 chapters of Brahmara-gita, the 82nd chapter, the meeting in Kuruksetra, and in the 20th chapter of the Antya-lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is a description of the Siksastaka prayers. There's a passage or a journey of feelings, which the root of is when Krishna left Vrindavan. And the gopis are feeling this intense viraha katara, or pangs of separation from Krishna. And these feelings are coming out in their words to Uddhava, the unmadana. So Sanatana Goswami describes that real humility comes from ecstatic love, and the example is the Braj Gopikas, Tasam Gokulanadinam Eva Krishna Viyogataha. When they were feeling so much separation from Krishna, that's real dainya. That's the last limit of humility. And he says that we should cultivate that dainya. Yaya vacheya dainyam matya chaischaryamiti tat. We should cultivate it with our body, our words, and our mind. Even it may be a little artificial. Sometimes devotees, they say we should just be natural and just beat up everybody or punch them in the nose or something. But in Vedic culture, it's a culture of humility. It's a culture of respect, where the children touch the feet of the parents, where the wife and the husband offer obeisances to each other in Vaishnava culture, where we serve the elders, we give deep respect, and even though that respect may not be genuine in one sense, but if it's done, then we may get some ashirvad. we may get some blessings in return for that. So we also spoke from the Chaitanya Charitamrita how the mood of Radharani and the gopis is only for pleasing Krishna. Sudha prema braja devira kama ganda hina Krishna sukha tatparja e tarachina. That the gopis, their love, kama gandahina, there's not even the slightest fragrance of lust for themselves. But they have lust. The gopis are sometimes described as kamanuga, the following the path of lust. But their lust is for the pleasure of Krishna. This is something we spoke about in our previous sessions. So they only want to please Krishna, and Krishna only wants to please them. And paradoxically, this is why Krishna left Vrindavan, because he saw that in a very inconceivable kind of way, that the gopis actually relish more ecstasy in separation than they did in union. And in union, the gopis were feeling separation. When Radharani was sitting on Krishna's lap at the place known as Prem Sarovar today, which is near to Barsana, a bumblebee came buzzing around her face, and Madhu Mangal, who was there, drove it away with a stick and then proudly proclaimed, Madhusudan is gone. Madhusudan means a bumblebee, but Madhusudan is also a name for Krishna. And when Radharani heard that, she started crying. Oh, Madhusudan, my Pranavallabha Krishna is gone? What is this? She's sitting on Krishna's lap, and she starts crying and feeling this separation. And Krishna also started crying, and the tears of the divine couple manifested a kund, a pond which is still there today, which is known as Prem Sarovar. So this is called Prema Vaichitya, of the four types of separation Rupa Goswami speaks of in Ujjvala Nilamani. The third is Prema Vaichitya, or a very inconceivable feeling of separation when there's union. So Krishna was thinking to himself then that the gopis' love is so deep, it's so extraordinary, that when there's union, they're feeling separation. And when there's separation, they're feeling union. So Krishna thought to himself that better that I leave Braj. In this way, we can heighten, we can increase, be real careful there, we can increase the feelings of love of the gopis. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the word viraha, which means separation, is a compound word of two words, vi and raha. Vi means vishesh rup, or a special form. And raha means rahasya milan, a special mysterious kind of union. So it means external separation, but internal union. And this is what's happening at this time. So this is setting the stage for the meeting in Kuruksetra, because as there's four types of separation, there's also four types of union. Of the four types of separation, the most intense is called Sudura Prabhas. Sudura Prabhas is when Krishna has gone to Mathura, Dwarka, and the gopis, they don't know if Krishna is ever going to return again or not. So as there's four types of separation, there's four types of union, and the highest type of union is called Samriddhiman Sambhog, which means fully enriched union. So that Samriddhiman Sambhog, for that to take place, there has to be Sudura Prabhas. For the greatest ecstasy to take place, there has to be the greatest separation. So that's the Brahmara-gita, that separation. And the union is there in Kuruksetra. But in that Kuruksetra, it's a mixed feeling. There's two opposites in one container. There's both union and separation. There's union because they're together, but there's separation because the gopis are remembering, hey, you left us. And the gopis are very much conscious that in a few days, Krishna's going to leave again, and he's going to return to Dwarka. So the gopis are wanting to pull Krishna back to Vrindavan. That's Ratha Yatra. Those are the feelings at Kuruksetra. And that's the feelings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these three places, although they look very different, inside the emotions are very, very similar. In the Brahmara-gita, at the place known as Udavakeri at Nandagaon, in Kuruksetra, and in Jagannath Puri with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the gopis, they're feeling that they don't have any love. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami about him in the Antya-lila, chapter 20 of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Kaviraj Goswami says, Premira svabhava jahan, premira sambandha, Shemane Krishna Mora Nahi Prema Ganda. He says, when there's Premira Sambandha, or a very, very intense relationship of love of God, the nature of it, the swabhava, the nature of that relationship is that they think, Shemane, they're thinking, Krishna Mora Nahi Prema Ganda. I don't even have a drop of love of God. I don't even have a slight fragrance of love of God. So this is the mood of the gopis in the Brahmara-gita. They're thinking, actually, Krishna get more pleasure from those ladies of Mathura. And this is the mood of the gopis at Kuruksetra. This dainya is something which arises in the heart due to intense feelings of separation. And as Sanatana Goswami says, this dainya bhav, the ultimate expression of it is in the gopis' feelings of separation. It's the highest ecstasy. It's a symptom of the highest ecstasy. So the gopis in Kuruksetra, there's only one verse they speak to Krishna in Kuruksetra. We quote this quite often. Ahushchate nalina naba padada vindam Yogeshwarai Hridi Vichincham Magada Bodhai Samsara Kupa Patitotaranavalamban Geham Jusam Apimanasyudiyat Sadanaha. They address Krishna as Nalina Naba. They're addressing him as God. From your lotus navel comes Lord Brahma, because we know you're Lord Vishnu. Now, this sounds very different than the words of the gopis in Vrindavan. But in their dainya bhav, they're thinking, now, Krishna, you've become God. You've gone to Dwarka and everybody's worshiping you as God. And you're sending this fellow Uddhava to us and telling us that we should practice meditation. But the gopis in Kuruksetra, they only speak one verse, because one commentary I read over this was that they couldn't tolerate speaking anything more. Actually, what I said is that Sukadeva Goswami couldn't tolerate speaking anything more. The gopis spoke many more things. But Sukadeva Goswami, it was so painful for him, he couldn't tolerate repeating that. So the gopis, and then they're saying, Yogeshwarai Hridi Vichincha Magada Bodhai, that we know that those greatest of yogis, Yogeshwara, with Lord Shiva and others, they're always meditating upon you. And those Agada Bodhai, those big, big philosophers, they like to hear all the very deep philosophy. But who are we? Samsara Kupa Patita. We're fallen in the well of household life. Geham Jusam, we're just completely absorbed in griha, in the activities of our family. Api manashyudi yat sadanaha. So how can we always think of you? You're telling us, Mamana bhava mad bhakto, mad yaji mam namaskaru, sarvadanam parityaga, mamekam saranam bhaja. You're telling us to surrender to you. You're telling us that we should always think of you. But how can we do it? Because our minds are always disturbed. For someone to practice yoga and meditation, they have to be peaceful. But we're not peaceful. We can't stop thinking about you. And that makes us very, very agitated. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to teach us this path of the gopis, these feelings of the gopis. He's come to speak something to us about Srimati Radharani. Jada Gauri na harito. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not come, Vasudeva Gosha, then how would we know anything about Srimati Radharani and about the feelings of the gopis? So this is the nature of the gopis that it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchila chapter 20. The height of Mahaprabhu's ecstasy here in Jagannath Puri is he began to compile these verses of Siksastaka prayers, which have very, very deep purport. There's a purport for ourselves, but there's also purports for the gopis. There's also an expression of Krishna's feelings of relishing the mood of the gopis. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami explains those Siksastaka prayers. In text 22, he says, Uttamahana apakane mane tuna dhamma dui prakare sahasnuta kori briksha sama. That this is the symptom of someone who is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra in the line of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. This is what Prabhupada called Goswami Vichar, the consideration of our 6 Goswamis, not Smarta Vichar. In Orissa, especially in Puri, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is very famous, and so many people are chanting it. But many of them are chanting it to get a wife, to overcome inauspiciousness, to get liberation. But for the followers of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, they have a different motivation when they're chanting. And the symptoms of someone who's actually chanting properly, who's actually chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, who's Uttama, that although he's Uttama, apanake mani tinadam, he feels himself to be the lowest of the low. And this is the nature of the gopis. The gopis are the most exalted devotees, but they're feeling themselves to be the most fallen. In Dui Prakar, that manifests in 2 ways, Sahishnuta, Brikshasham. One thing is that they're feeling themselves trinadam, lower than the grass in the street. And the second is that Brikshasham, that there is tolerant. Sahishnuta Brikshasham, they're as tolerant as a tree is. So this is the nature of the gopis. And Mahaprabhu describes in his Siksastaka prayers, Nadhanam najanam nasundarim Kavitham va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahoitiki tvai. The gopis are naturally experiencing very intense humility. And the symptom of that humility is that they don't want anything for themselves. They're just crying and crying in the heart. Nadanam, I don't want wealth. Najanam, I don't need followers. Nasundarim, I don't need any beautiful women. Kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, I don't need people to come and flatter me and write poems about how great I was. Kavitam means a poet, kavi. Rather, jagadisha kamaye, my dear Lord, the only thing that I desire, mama janmani janmanishvare, I don't care about liberation. Janmani, janma janmanishvare, birth after birth. All that I want, bhavatad bhaktir ahoitaki tvai. I want unmotivated bhakti, ahoitaki. So this is the nature of the Bhagavatam. This is spoken in the Bhagavatam. But there are 2 symptoms of love. It's ahoitaki and apratiyata. The same word is used in Siksastaka, ahoitaki. Unmotivated love. For it to be yayatma supersedity. For it to be fully satisfying to the self. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that yayatma supersedity, for it to be pleasing to the self, has 2 meanings. Atma means both the jivatma and it means the paramatma. So the only way that it will be satisfying for ourself, this religious process, you may do some religious process, even you might be chanting Hare Krishna, which is the topmost religious process in this age. But if your motivation is not ahoitaki and apratiyata, apratiyata is a symptom of ahoitaki. Ahoitaki means that there's no personal motivation for myself. And then the symptom of that is that it's apratiyata. It never stops. It's not that I'm doing it to get some perfection or to get freedom of sin or something. And then once I have that, then I'll give it up. But it's apratiyata. And devotion like that is the only thing which is fully satisfying to both ourselves and to the Lord. And this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming to give. Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitaki Tvai. He's praying in the mood of the gopis that, my dear Lord, our bhakti, we want to be ahoitaki bhakti, with no other motivation other than to please you. So this is why the gopis are kamanuga, or following the path of lust. Their lust is not for themselves. Their lust is for Krishna. They simply want to please Krishna in the topmost way. And Kaviraj Goswami, in his explanation of this verse, he says, Brajera Vishuddha Prem Jena Jambu Nadahim Atma Sukha Jaha Nahi Ganda Se Prema Janati Loke Prabhu Koila E Shloke Padi Koila Artana Nirbanda. He says that the love of Vrindavan, Brajera Vishuddha Prema, it's Vishuddha Prema. It's completely pure. It's a hoitaki bhav. It's Jaina. It's like Jambu Nada Hema. It's like the gold. Hema means gold, which is found, the golden particles which are found in the Jambu River. There's no purpose for it. Nobody minded anything. It just showed up on its own. And he says that Atma Sukha Jaha Nahi Ganda. The nature of this love is that there's not even a ganda or a small fragrance of Atma Sukh or desire for one's personal pleasure. Se prema janati loke prabhu koile e shloke padi koila artena nirbanda. So it's to advertise its meaning. This has a deep purport. Se prema janati loke prabhu koila e shloke padi koila artena nirbanda. It's to advertise, janati loke, to speak to the world about the love of Vrindavan, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote this verse, Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktir ahoitaki tvai. That I don't want anything. There's no love like that. And therefore Krishna previously told the gopis, Naparayeham niravadya samyujam, that I don't know how to repay my debt to you. I've made a solemn promise. Yeyatam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. I always reciprocate with someone however they approach me. But how do I reciprocate with you? Because your love is a hoitaki. It has no personal motivation. It only wants to please me. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Sartha Darshana commentary on the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, he raises a question. If we say that the gopis of Vrindavan are the topmost devotees, Aradya Bhagavan Brajay Satanayasta Dhamma Vrindavanam Ramya Kacharu Pasana Brajavadu, that the Brajavadus, as is described by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur in the beginning of his commentary, in his Mangalacharana, his commentary in the Bhagavatam, he says those Brajabadus, the married gopis of Vrindavan, their love is the topmost. If we say that, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, if we say that the love of the gopis is the topmost, then the question comes, how? It doesn't make any sense. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, we'll reject that statement because Krishna left them and they cried and cried in separation. How can you say that Krishna loved the Braj gopis? It's a lie. Rather, Krishna loved the ladies in Mathura and the residents in Dwarka. He left Vrindavan and he went to Mathura and Dwarka and they were able to see him every day. Just this is one of the answers we give to the Pandits sometimes in Puri, when they say, "Oh, Madhavananda, you're very durbhagya, very unfortunate." I say, "Why?" "Oh, because you can't go inside and see Jagannath." Recently, one of our friends was trying to arrange some secret way I can disguise myself like this, and and you can go into this particular gate, and we'll have some particular Pandit meet you there, take you. And I said, "No, I don't want that." Huh? In America, if someone decides that some ordinary person who's watching television or something, he sees some movie actress on the movies on the television, he falls in love with her, and he decides he wants to go and meet her, and he's going to go into her house, or he's going to go to some party that she's having or something. They'll call the police. In American English, we have a word for such a person. They call him a stalker. And it's very much unwanted. He's just following that girl, but there's no natural relationship. So I told this Pandit friend of mine, I don't want to go inside the Jagannath Mandir like that. Different devotees may do. I know some exalted, wonderful Western devotees who've gone inside. That's fine. But my personal mood, I want Jagannath to bring me inside the temple. I'm not a stalker. I'm not going to sneak my way inside and something, and then they'll call the police on me or something. I'm not wanted. If I'm wanted, I'll go. So I tell this to the Pandits sometimes, that who are the greatest devotees? The Brijbasis or the Dwarkabasis? And they say the Brijbasis. Everyone knows that. That's important. I tell them it's a lie. How can you say that? Krishna left them and he went to Dwarka, and the Brijbasis couldn't see him, but the Dwarkabasis were seeing him every day. So obviously, Krishna loved the Dwarkabasis more, isn't it? No. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur clearly explains, Krishna loved the Brijbasis more than the Dwarkabasis. He loved them the most. But he gives an example that just as a goldsmith, to prove the quality, the purity of the gold, he heats it with fire. And then the gold melts, and you see if there's some other elements within the gold or how pure it is. So in the same way, Krishna applied the heat known as Vipralamba Agni to the hearts of the gopis to show their love. And this is why Kaviraj Goswami says Mahaprabhu wrote this verse, Na danam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, to show the love of the gopis, that the gopis' love is a haitaki. And this is the meaning of the Bhagavatam. That the gopis, they don't want anything for themselves. Purve ashta shloke kori, loke siksha dila, she ashta shlokera arta, apane ashvadila. He says previously, Purve ashta shloka kori, loka siksha dila. That Mahaprabhu's purpose in composing the Siksastaka prayers was for Loka Siksha, to teach common people. But say Ashta Shloka Arta Apane Asfadila. Now he's personally relishing these verses. So again and again we find in the Bhagavatam there's some artava, there's some hidden meaning. And many things are being said. One thing is being said, but there's multiple meanings. Prati shloki, prati akshari nanatakoi. Every verse, every syllable has different meanings. And therefore Uddhava was instructed by Krishna, you should speak these verses, speak my message to them again and again and again and again. And the gopis understand it again and again and again in different ways. So one meaning is for some external lokasiksha for us. But there's another deep meaning. And to understand this meaning, this is why my revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Maharaj, spoke the lectures he did, which were later compiled into a book called Embankment of Separation. The purpose of that book is to teach us what is the inner feelings of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Because if we don't understand the inner heart of Mahaprabhu, if all that we understand is his external mission, what is called his Bahiranga Karana, or external purpose, we don't understand the Antaranga Karana, the internal purpose, then how will we be able to get the topmost thing that he's come to give? So it's for that purpose that he spoke those lectures, and it's for that purpose that we're trying to study the progression of this love from Vrindavan to Mathura to Dwarka to Kuruksetra, and finally to Jagannath Puri. So Kaviraj Goswami, he says these Siksastaka prayers are very, very important. Prabhurak Siksastaka Shloke Je Pade Shune Krishna Prema Bhakti Tara Bhare Dine Dine. If you hear these Siksastaka prayers, they're not just meant to tell you that, hey, Chaito Darpana Marjanam, that you should take the holy name, as Fakir Rambu sometimes sarcastically would tell us, that the holy name is not just a toilet brush that you use to clean some nasty place. That's not the purpose of the holy name, Chaito Darpana Marjanam. There's a much, much higher purpose that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching in the Siksastaka prayers, and we should go through them. So if someone understands, if they're hearing Jepadi Shune, they're reciting those Siksastaka prayers, and therefore Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do that on a daily basis. And Krishna Prema Bhakti Tar Bhare Dine Dine, then day by day, your devotion, Prema Bhakti, your ecstatic love for Krishna will increase again day by day by day. So this is the purpose of these Siksastaka prayers, and we see a connection between the Brahmara-gita, the 47th chapter of the 10th canto, between the meeting in Kuruksetra, the 82nd chapter of the 10th canto, and the 20th chapter of the Ancha-lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is about the Siksastaka prayers. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. If anybody has any reflections or comments or anything, I want to thank everybody for taking part in this, because this is the only hope that we have, is if we come together with devotees and we hear the subject matter that we've received from Gurudev, the subject matter that we've gotten from higher Vaishnavas, Parasparak Anukatanam Pavanam Bhagavad Yasaha. We should come together and exchange that and chew on that and share our thoughts about these things. And this will create Sangha, and this will help us to make advancement. So I want to thank everybody who's been taking part today. Gorni Tai Prabhu's, I don't know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning or something in Hungary, he's there. And, yeah, he made some comment about the camera. I forgot to bring an attachment for my tripod, so the camera's just kind of propped up and there's no way to position it in a better way. I'm sorry. I want to thank Brajabani, Anupani Radha, and other devotees who are taking part in this today. So if anybody has any reflections or comments, that would make me very happy. You can please share that online. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop and we'll be back next week. Anybody here in the room perhaps have any reflections or anything? I'm going to have to give you the mic if you have anything. Something that you like, something that struck you in a particular way. Do you want to share something?
Thank you very much. I was struck by something which is very obvious and which we hear a lot, but today I found it especially relevant, that we are not chanting to overcome obstacles. We are not chanting to get perfection. We are just chanting to please Krishna. And then of course, it reminds me of Fakir Mahaprabhu, how he was saying that we are simply chanting because Krishna likes to hear the sound of his name, and it's not a toilet brush. And also I was struck by your comment that day by day, our love for Krishna will increase if we just keep chanting with this motivation, just to please Guru and Krishna. So just very simple, but this is what remained with me.
The simple things are the very profound things. Anupani Radha has also commented that what struck her was the statement from Kaviraj Goswami about the gopis, that there's not even a fragrance of Atma Sukh or personal happiness for themselves. Okay, so unless anybody else has anything further, we'll go ahead and stop there. Okay, thank you all very much. Gorni Taipabu has made some comment. He says, today your explanation is very smooth and clear. It's a long journey to prepare ourselves and qualify ourselves for the highest level of bhakti. Long, but not lonely way, because only in association of pure devotees can we make sure that we get to the goal. Yes, long, but not lonely. Or maybe lonely even sometimes too, and we find that we don't have association with those devotees, or lonely in the sense that we may feel that we don't really have that association. We're just externally associating with them. Manu Prabhu has commented on Facebook here. He says, I was listening to a lecture series by Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, where he talked about false ego in a mode of goodness, where one thinks he's a great knower of things more than anything else, anyone else, whereas the gopis feel their love is the lowest. Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj made a beautiful comment. We were recently unpacking a little bit. We had the good fortune to be with him at Govardhan and Gaur Purnima. And in his Gaur Purnima lecture, he spoke something about Mahaprabhu's meeting with the big Digvijay Pandit Keshava Kashmiri. And he compared that to Mahaprabhu's meeting and taking initiation from Ishwara Puri. And Keshava Kashmiri was a big Pandit, and Mahaprabhu smashed him to pieces. But as Maharaj pointed out, first of all, Mahaprabhu didn't do that publicly. And shortly after smashing him, Mahaprabhu left and went to Gaya, where he took initiation from Ishwara Puri, who, in comparison to the grammatical and literary skills of Keshava Kashmiri, Ishwara Puri would appear to be very insignificant. But Ishwara Puri was categorically different because he had ecstatic love due to his service to Madhavendra Puri. And Maharaj explained that he felt this was very significant because if Mahaprabhu had not gone to Gaya and taken initiation like that from Ishwara Puri, then perhaps people would misunderstand his movement and think that gathering some information, some gyan, is the most important thing. But by taking initiation from Ishwara Puri, Mahaprabhu practically canceled out that thing. That no, we see here, yes, I smashed this big Vijay Pandit, but that's not a big deal. The big deal is I'm taking initiation from this person who's not so grammatical, who's not such a big Pandit, but he's the greatest person because he has ecstatic love. So the nature of Gyan is that we get some pride. If we have some information only, then the symptom will be that some pride will be there. And we're not interested, this movement is not interested in information. So thank you, Manu Prabhu. And Brajabanita has also commented, I love the idea the gopis feel desire for happiness of Krishna, not for themselves. Brajabanita, that is a very deep point. Let's try to understand it from a different perspective, which you might find a little shocking, I don't know. But we see also in the case of Srila Prabhupada and different acharyas that sometimes they actually encourage people who are mixed devotees. They may even give them a position or something because they want to help them. Their purpose is not just externally to make everything antiseptic and prophylactic and perfect, and they understand the heart of these people, but to encourage them and to give them some opportunity. They give them some position in the society. And Gorni Taipabu has further commented, he's quoting from Raghunath Goswami's Mana Siksha. And gives some translation. O my mind, how can pure divine love appear in my heart as long as a shameless dog-eating outcast woman of the desire for prestige is audaciously dancing there? Therefore always remember and serve the immeasurably powerful commanders of the army of Sri Krishna, the beloved devotees of the Lord. They will at once banish this outcast woman and initiate the flow of immaculate Braj Prem in your heart. Very appropriate comment. Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, this is the point. If we don't give up this pratistasa, which is drishta, Raghunath Das Goswami says in this verse, drishta means impudent. I have this pratishta asa. Asa means a desire for pratishta. Pratishta asa drishta supacha. Supacha ramani. It's a prostitute who's a dog eater. Prostitutes are bad. Dog eaters are bad. But a dog-eating prostitute, that's the worst. And so this is, and this, she's drishta. She's very impotently dancing in my heart. Like this is the real purpose, to have this position. And Jagannath Das Goswami, he says, we should be very, very careful about this. Brajabhanita makes a nice comment. She says, pride comes from lack of intelligence too. That's a fact. And therefore, we shouldn't just be ignorant and think that, oh, Prabhu, I'm very simple. I'm very advanced because I'm so ignorant. I'm very advanced because I don't read books. I just chant Hare Krishna. I'm not interested in what the 6 Goswamis had to say. I don't need to read what Srila Prabhupada had to say. That pride also comes from ignorance, from lack of intelligence. It's a nice comment from Brajabhanita. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop there. Thank you all very much. It's a great opportunity for me to purify myself by repeating something we've heard from my Guru Maharaj and Acharyas. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo, Vancha Kalpatarubhischa, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam, Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.